Hey, don't harass or reach out to the people I mention in this video in any way. Thanks. For about 3.5 months, maybe 4, there's been a video popping up on my YouTube home screen called Fear of Forgetting. Thinking it was a video from this guy, Jacob Geller, I went ahead and clicked on it, and I was immediately confronted with a bit of a misunderstanding regarding Alzheimer's disease. Dude said that dementia can be caused by a vitamin B12 deficiency.
Dementia refers to any sort of memory loss related confusion. Some of them revolve around simple deficits, such as a vitamin B12 deficiency.
He also stated that dementia is caused by a protein called amyloid beta.
The most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. The disease is caused by abnormalities with 2 different kinds of protein in the brain. Amyloid beta protein can stick to other amyloid beta proteins, gradually building up into a hard, insoluble plaque between cells.
Now this, to me, is frustrating. Let's be fair here a little bit. I was already frustrated because I thought I was watching a video from this guy, a guy who I've seen a few times in the past and was always pleased by his videos, and instead I got this guy who just was not who I was expecting, so I was already thrown off a little bit. I'm sure you can't blame me for thinking it was him. This video was put together very well. I have a problem with a lot of the research that he's done. First off, I want to mention vitamin B12. Cobalamin deficiency may cause cognitive deficits and even dementia. In Alzheimer's disease, the most frequent cause of dementia in elderly persons is low serum levels of vitamin B12 may be misleading. Although 12 elderly patients with dementia improved with treatment, 7 elderly dementia patients did not improve and actually deteriorated after a year, although the cobalamin levels were normal. I do understand that the claim in this video is that there is a type of dementia caused by a vitamin B12 deficiency. A cursory glance kind of shows that to maybe not be the case. My main issue at the very beginning of this video, though, was how this guy talks about the amyloid hypothesis and treats it like fact. There's nowhere in the video where he says this is what once was believed to be whatever. He doesn't use the word hypothesis. He doesn't even use theory, which it's not. It's a hypothesis. The reason why it burns me so badly is because Alzheimer's amyloid beta. If you just look, faked beta amyloid data. Basically, last year, 2022, before this video came out, it was huge news. Anyone who knew anything about dementia and Alzheimer's learned about this. Basically, the long and short of it is the data had been faked that led to the amyloid beta hypothesis. The beta amyloid hypothesis. He's got me saying it backwards. Or the amyloid cascade hypothesis. It was faked. The photos were faked. We're not going to go too far into it. You guys aren't on a health channel. I am a registered nurse, but yeah, it kind of rubs me the wrong way whenever people take something like this and they continue to spread information. My guess is he heard about this or read it from a source. Maybe he had no reason to believe it wasn't accurate. If you're going to do a video like this about something like this, at the very least you could do is call it what it is, a hypothesis, and not prop it up like, hey, this is what happens. This is how it works. This is why. Because the fact of the matter is, this is a hypothesis that even before it came out that the study was faked and the data was faked, the more people looked into it, the more people tested the hypothesis, the more controversy followed. I'm just saying, if you did even a cursory amount of research, you should have seen that. This is a video that I was on the fence about making. I promised a friend of mine that I would, and so I'm making it. Now, me personally, as someone who works closely with people suffering from Alzheimer's and all forms of dementia on a daily basis, it is sometimes hard for me to interact with videos that I feel like are trivializing it or dramatizing it, and this video definitely dramatizes dementia. It doesn't need to be made dramatic, okay? For the people that know about it, it is dramatic enough as it is. It doesn't need your help.
At best, forgetting is simply inconvenient. At its worst, it can destroy a life, multiple lives. There are many truly awful ways you can die, but significantly few fates worse than dying. Not to mention that the chances of ever experiencing any of them are astronomically slim. Except dementia. I think dementia is one of those few, and it's one of my greatest fears. While other fears, say a fear of deep water, cause what is a comparatively innocent distrust, forgetting is unavoidable. Dementia is uncontrollable. We have no way to slow its advancing emptiness.
Right away. We have no way to slow its advancing emptiness. What he's saying in less dramatic words. So we have no way of slowing the rate of progression of dementia, which is false. There are drugs out there, Aricept, namely, or donepezil. I don't know, I'm dyslexic. It's actually a medication that he shows a photo of later in the video when talking about how if it's not a cure, they don't do it. Like, it's not worth trying something if it's not a cure. And as they say that, he shows Aricept, donepezil, on the screen, which is not a cure, but it is a drug that is supposed to be helpful in slowing the progression of dementia.
Medical institutions have prioritized funding potential cures over present treatment. However, our failed attempts at a drug for Alzheimer's have time and time again been reliably covered by insurance companies.
I feel like if you knew enough to find out, hey, this is the drug, this is what it does, I'm going to show a photo of it, then you would know that this statement here isn't true, and then the statement later is dubious at best. If you like the video, leave a comment if you have anything to say, consider subscribing. Thank you so much.
Dementia takes everything from you before, finally, you lose yourself. And while there are suggested ways to outrun it, it's hard to be sure that you've ever truly escaped. Even then, you may still forget large fragments of your life, submit to false memories, or lose important information forever. We are all running out of time.
We're all running out of time anyway. Everybody dies. You're gonna die. I'm gonna die. We're all gonna die. Dementia doesn't typically take everything away first before you lose who you are. Typically, you will lose who you are and your family will watch that slow decline, and it will hurt them a lot. In my experience, except for in the early stages of dementia, the rest of it, it's really the family that typically suffers the most. Everyone that I know that's in those late stages of dementia where you don't know where you are, you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know why, or maybe you have an idea of why and it's just something that's not true, they're fine. They're happy even. They eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They go about their day. Now, of course, this is in the confines of a nursing facility, but they're good. They've got their needs met. It is sad to see, but typically they aren't sad. In my experience, it's been the people in those early stages where you're not sure what's true and what's not. Believe it or not, a lot of times people are aware that this is happening. I've been told many times, I feel like this is the early stages of dementia, or I feel like I am forgetting a lot, or I think I have dementia, and then we go ahead and do some kind of exam. Alzheimer's, of course, being the most common form of dementia. I'm lobbing it in under the umbrella of dementia here. There, of course, are other forms of dementia. There's alcohol-induced early onset dementia. There's Parkinson's dementia. There's Lewy bodies dementia, which is oftentimes associated with Parkinson's. There's all kinds of dementia, and it's never easy to watch. I don't know why we're focusing on Alzheimer's dementia here. And contrary to popular belief, it's not just forgetting. It is a cognitive decline. It is your memory and your personality and your ability to problem solve, your logical thinking, your critical thinking. Anyway, I'm getting lost in the sauce here, but there's so much associated with dementia. There's so much that you lose alongside your memories. And he does touch on that, to be fair. He does touch on that. The focus is so hard on the forgetting. A lot of times the hardest part for the families is, this isn't the person that I knew. Because if it was just forgetting, they wouldn't know who you are, but they'd still be the same person that you've loved your whole life. A lot of times with dementia, they're just not. Same with a stroke. A stroke can do the same thing. A lot of times you just have a major personality overhaul.
Dementia refers to any sort of memory loss related confusion.
Dementia refers to any memory loss related confusion. I haven't heard that before. It might be true. I don't think it is.
Some of them revolve around simple deficits, such as a vitamin B12 deficiency.
He says some of them revolve around certain deficits, like a vitamin B12 deficiency. The only thing that I see linking to vitamin B12 deficiency is Alzheimer's, and that seems to be a correlation-causation problem.
But others are a bit more complicated. The most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. It's currently ranked as the 6th leading cause of death for adults.
Yep.
The disease is caused by abnormalities with 2 different kinds of protein in the brain. One of them is linked to chromosome 21, which might be why 70% of people with Down syndrome develop Alzheimer's after the age of 40. Down syndrome is caused by an extra copy of chromosome 21. This chromosome contains the instructions for the production of a protein called amyloid precursor protein. But it's what this protein breaks down into that's concerning: amyloid beta. Amyloid beta protein can stick to other amyloid beta proteins, gradually building up into a hard, insoluble plaque between cells. Healthy brains usually clear out amyloid buildup, but those with Alzheimer's don't seem to be able to. Thus, these plaques never stop accumulating.
This, I wouldn't have ever had a problem with if there was like a big maybe. Maybe that's the reason why people with Down syndrome tend to get Alzheimer's after the age of 40. Maybe it's caused by this. Maybe this is a hypothesis. I also really feel like he should have mentioned that the test data was fake. It really wouldn't matter, honestly. I wouldn't give a shit if it wasn't for the fact that for decades, all of the Alzheimer's research was built around this amyloid hypothesis. And the reason why was because of the study with fake data. And it's frustrating that there's another person out there, albeit not a scientist, that's kind of going, oh, this is the reason why. It's not. I mean, maybe, but the data doesn't support that. We don't know why. We're still trying to figure out why.
But there's still no cure. It's at this point that some people and their caretaker-to-be are prescribed antidepressants instead. And what's left but a brain subjected to itself?
Even if there was a cure, you'd probably need antidepressants, because this shit is rough for everybody involved.
A long unraveling, an insidious disease advancing your synapses self-destruct.
You see, we don't need that. So for the rest of this video, he kind of goes on about phenomenology and how it is the study of lived experience.
Phenomenology is the philosophy of lived experience, of phenomena. It studies the way consciousness functions as an interpreter of the world.
And how these various phenomenologists, how these various guys, these philosophers, have said these various things and how they kind of, sort of, in a way, relate to Alzheimer's. That's fine, I guess. He talks about Ghost in the Shell and how that, in a way, relates to Alzheimer's because the trash truck driver doesn't know who he is, and to him, he's got kids and a wife, but in real life, he doesn't, and it wrecks his whole day. And yeah, I guess we don't really need pop culture references for dementia. I feel like dementia is kind of a relatable enough subject that people kind of get what it is, right? Maybe not. Why are we narrowing it down to Alzheimer's? This problem persists with alcohol-induced dementia. This problem is the same with schizophrenic people or people experiencing psychosis for any number of reasons.
Ideas from this field in particular can help us understand what it's like to have dementia.
You are never going to understand what it's like to have dementia, phenomenologists or not. The reason for that mostly is because almost no two cases of dementia are alike. I know people who, according to their children, were horrible, mean, abusive people in life, and after getting dementia are now just the sweetest people on the planet. And then vice versa, people who were just the kindest people becoming just the most horrible people you've ever met. And it is because of dementia, the slow deterioration of the brain, that this happens. I've also met people who have the exact same personality but can't remember what they're doing, why they're doing it. They still go by their old nicknames, they remember their old job, they even remember the fact that they've retired, but they don't know where they're at or why, and sometimes their temper gets away from them a little bit. And he does touch on this a little bit, that it usually starts in the hippocampus and the frontal cortex, and that it doesn't always start there. But I feel like he just kind of shits on that for the rest of the video. Like, he pushes it out of his mind, he wants to pretend that he's got dementia for a minute, and that didn't happen, and go on to illustrate how dementia is in general. This riled me up a little bit. I'm not usually someone who's easily riled. I'm a pretty calm guy most of the time.
There's an ancient Greek word that's repeated a lot throughout his writings, aletheia.
Who gives a fuck?
Only
There's a section of this video where Clark talks about Saul Kripke and his book Naming and Necessity, and basically how things are what they are in our mind because of the name we give for them. And once you lose that name, you lose all meaning behind it. I'm butchering the point, but for the sake of brevity, that's more or less, that's the long and short of it. And I just want to mention that that's bullshit, at least in the case of dementia. In the words of William Shakespeare, that which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Basically saying, get bent, Kripke. I've known people who carry around plastic babies as their own. They don't know the names of these babies. They just call them baby. Well, they've got black baby, they've got baby, and sure, maybe a little racist, but they cared about both of them just the same. The point of what I'm saying is that just because they didn't have a name didn't mean they weren't their baby. And let's put it even further. I know people that didn't know the word for banana who still wanted one, who would point, couldn't think of the name of it, and open it up and eat it. What about people with a stroke, with expressive aphasia, who don't remember the words for anything? They still know what they want. They just can't remember what the word is. They go to say it and nothing comes out, or something else comes out. You say it to them and they're confused. But if you show it to them, hey, that's what it is. It drives me crazy that we are taking these concepts, that we are taking these philosophies that maybe apply to the general population and saying, hey, this is just like what this is. Again, I don't think that Clark is being malicious. I think his heart's in the right place. Maybe he's just trying to illustrate what his thoughts on dementia are for the wider audience, and that's kind of what I'm doing too. I don't have a problem with the guy. I don't know why I would. This is a video that makes me upset, and I'm gonna talk to you about it.
You can't discuss dementia like this without mentioning the caretaker, specifically his work Everywhere at the End of Time, a 6-hour collection of albums which together thrust you headfirst into the deteriorating mind of an Alzheimer's patient.
He talks about the caretaker and Everywhere at the End of Time, a musical piece that is designed to mimic the stages of Alzheimer's and kind of illustrate them in an auditory fashion. And ironically enough, this is a rendition that I don't have too many issues with. Again, I have a hard time with it just because my own experiences with people who have Alzheimer's. But the fact that he didn't go for like straight up horror soundtrack the whole time, there does seem to be a lot of research put behind it. Obviously, a lot of care was taken on the way into this that I really do enjoy it, and I think you should listen to it. I think a lot of the YouTube videos that people made listening to it and reacting maybe are a little more...
On the first listen, the collection feels evil, ominous, or demonic if you're in a particularly sensitive mood.
Sitting alone in your own excrement.
He talks about the clock drawings that people use when studying people with dementia. They also use it for stroke victims. They use it for people suffering from encephalopathy for any reason. Any reason somebody might have cognitive deficits, we use the clock thing. It's a part of many different studies. I'm just going to call it the clock thing for this. And it's cool that he brought it up. It is actually a super interesting thing.
Reliably covered by insurance companies. He explains, the problem then, and still today in America, is that an effective intervention is not a treatment unless it has a business model.
That is true. An effective intervention isn't a treatment until it has a business model in the US, and it sucks. There is something that he mentions when talking about people's personalities changing.
Total personality change is common in these stages. I've read story after story of sweet husbands and wives growing uncharacteristically brutal and violent, even beating their families. There's just this unexplainable rage boiling up inside of them.
He really leans into the violence of it. Like, people get super combative and violent all the time and just boiling with rage. And yeah, sometimes that happens. I see it more often that they're constantly boiling with rage when you're dealing with a traumatic brain injury than with dementia, but it does happen with dementia sometimes. Almost across the board though, people do get more combative, but you kind of have to instigate first. They have to have a reason to be combative with you, whether it's because they don't want to take a shower, or they don't want to put their clothes on, or maybe in their mind you're getting in the way of whatever it is they want to do.
But sometimes it isn't all so dramatic. Sometimes it's as understated as stubborn characters growing milder like little children.
Also, he talks about living in imagination.
For patients with dementia, all of the potential significances of something are confined to the depths of their imagination instead of the present world. We now traverse wholly into the realm of the imaginary.
The imaginary world of Alzheimer's, and I don't really like the language behind that, and it is nitpicky again, but the fact of the matter is when somebody with Alzheimer's or any other cognitive problem, schizophrenia, whatever, you are now hearing about their world. You do not call that imagination. That is their truth. It is the truth to them, and 99% of the time there is no reason to go against that. And I'm pretty sure somewhere in the 50 minutes of this video he mentions that if they are posing a threat to themselves and others, hey, don't do that. Listen, you are suffering from a delusion right now. Let me help you. I am here to help. Please let me help you through this. Also, if somebody asks, somebody in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, a lot of times they ask you, where am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? Who are you? Why does nothing feel right? And you tell them, hey, listen, you have a diagnosis of dementia. I know it's hard. I'm here to help you through this. I'm a nurse, or the doctor if you're the doctor. I'm a nurse. I'm here to help you. Most of the time, what I get from that is like a mixture of fear and relief. It is a very strange emotion.
But eventually the light does dim, and then they forget how to breathe.
Part of what I wanted to make this video about is the families, the caretakers of these people with dementia. A lot of times it is hardest on them. The way that this video is laid out makes it sound like a linear nature, and for the most part it is. With every form of dementia, there's good days and there's bad days. There's days where they're going to remember you and days where they may not. There's days where they're going to have certain memories and days where they won't. And whenever somebody goes into the disease process of their loved one with the understanding that it is a linear nature, and their loved one says, hey, I remember our mom, when they usually don't, it gives a lot of false hope. And it is so heartbreaking the next day when they don't remember their mom again. It is so hard to make somebody understand that Alzheimer's is the reason their mom can't walk, because they have the understanding that Alzheimer's only affects their memory. Why can't she walk? She's got the muscles to walk. And it's hard for me to say, listen, Alzheimer's, it affects your whole brain. And unfortunately, your brain is where that impulse to walk comes from. It's not that she doesn't have the anatomy to walk. It's that she is unable to utilize it. I feel like videos like this kind of blur that message. I'm sure Clark didn't mean anything by it. I'm not going to sit here and attack the guy for trying to make a viral video. He did a good job. This thing's got almost 1 million views now. Crazy. Fantastic. I am happy for him. Do not harass him. I just want to say, maybe ask somebody that deals with it every day. Run your script by them. I'm sure you know a nurse. Everybody knows a nurse. And yeah, a lot of nurses are just, they're straight up bitches. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's somebody in your life that deals with this every single day. Talk to them a little bit, because maybe you have a family member that you took care of that had dementia, or maybe you currently do. But one experience isn't enough to paint with this broad of a brush. And unfortunately, while I understand that the intentions were there, maybe you are clouding the message that is most therapeutic. That is, listen, it affects everybody in different ways. It's okay to be afraid of Alzheimer's and afraid of dementia, but please understand that videos like this, they're not coming from a place of knowledge. They're coming from a place of fear, in my opinion. A lot of times, that fear is counterproductive for people currently dealing with this horrible disease. I really hope this has helped somebody. Maybe you saw this video and you reacted similar to me. Maybe you saw this video and really liked it, and maybe you like my input as well. Maybe you saw this video, you really liked it, and you hate my input and think I should have not made this video. In that case, get bent. That's about all I've got. Thanks a lot. See ya.